most personally vicious and vituperative attacks on President Trump in the Israeli press came from the Hebrew newspaper owned by Mrs. Adelson. Are they trying to send the White House a message?
It's not subtle. The whole point of what is happening and what has happened for the last 30 years since Netanyahu became prime minister should be understood by everybody. Israel is on a kind of rampage, and this started 30 years ago. The idea is that though there are 8 million Israeli Jews and 8 million Palestinian Arabs, the people that Netanyahu represents and what he himself believes is that those 8 million Jews should dominate everything. They should control all the territory. They should control the state. They should control all the laws. And people like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir believe the others should be killed or expelled, ethnically cleansed. Some of the more, quote, moderates, and I use the term ironically, just believe in apartheid rule, that there will be two classes, a Jewish state ruling over these undesirables. And this is what's called the project of Greater Israel. Greater Israel. This is not Israel. This is what's called Greater Israel. That Israel should have all sovereignty over all of the Palestinian lands, over all the land from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, and increasingly in their vanity and vulgarity and fascism, frankly, it should control part of Lebanon. It should control part of Syria. It should overthrow the regimes in the region, including, of course, Iran at will. It should bomb those who it wants to bomb. It should burn those cities that don't submit to Israeli rule. That's Greater Israel. That's what they want the United States to underwrite. And the United States has underwritten this almost without any restraint for 30 years. And the more they do, the more Palestinians they kill, the more countries they invade, the more countries they bomb. When the United States doesn't oppose that, they feel that they can move even farther. And they went as far as to get the United States into a war of regime change against Iran that obviously failed in its first hours, and that has been a terrible blow for the whole world since basically March 1, and a potential total economic disaster for the world, not to mention humanitarian disaster. And this is the basic question. Are the American people signed up to this agenda? The vast majority of Americans find this Greater Israel agenda disgusting. It involves mass murder. It involves apartheid rule, which is repulsive. And it involves getting the United States into wars that are very expensive and very costly. And it involves $5 to $6 a gallon gasoline, not to mention that and all the other high costs which are hitting the American people who are feeling it very, very badly. So do we want to underwrite Greater Israel? Well, there is an alternative, and it's been the stated alternative of our government, but our government has been too weak, too corrupted, too broken by the Zionist lobby to actually stand up for what we've actually said, which is that there should be a state of Palestine alongside the state of Israel, with the two living in peace. And that's international law. That is the overwhelming view of the international community. But that's what the United States itself has blocked. The U.S. literally has been the single blockage of that, because there was a vote in 2024 at the United Nations in the UN Security Council. Should Palestine be admitted to the United Nations as a UN member state? And this would be on the lines of the 4th of June, 1967, Israel's legal borders as defined by the International Court of Justice. And the Security Council was unanimous yes, 2 abstentions, and 1 veto. The veto was the United States, because the U.S. was doing greater Israel's bidding. But that doesn't serve the American people. That doesn't serve the American economy. That doesn't address the cost of living crisis. That doesn't address the genocide that greater Israel meant for the people of Gaza. It doesn't address the war in Iran that has been nothing but a debacle for every part of the world, the Gulf countries, the U.S. standing in the world, Iran itself, of course, every country that uses oil, which is every country in the world. So we should just say to Israel, look, go back to your borders, stop wrecking the Middle East, live within your own borders, stop all the wars, and no, not greater Israel, just Israel. Just Israel.
Well, Professor Sachs, if
survive as a state, but there should be a state of Palestine next door.
Right.
A small part of the territory, by the way, small part of what was once upon a time the British mandate. The Palestinian part would be something, I think it's 22%, if I'm not mistaken, but I may have the number not exactly right. But Israel's already taken the vast share. Just go home, live within your borders, and there can be peace. And the United States should say that. And maybe, as haphazard as our governance is right now, maybe Donald Trump is actually figuring this out.
If the United States enters into a normal relationship with Iran as a result of these negotiations triggered by the Memorandum of Understanding, wouldn't that mean that the Greater Israel Project is over?
It would mean that the United States has finally broken with this chokehold that this Greater Israel Project has had on American foreign policy. It would be a tremendous advance. But then the next thing is clear. There should be a repeat vote in the UN Security Council, and Palestine should become the 194th member state. Then we could actually have peace in the Middle East. Peace, not perpetual war, but peace. Because when that happens, and when there's a state of Palestine living next to the state of Israel, mind you, next to and peacefully, then Iran can stop whatever support it's giving to the Palestinian resistance, and so can others that are supporting it, and the resistance will be ended and can easily be ended. And the Arab countries, just so everybody knows, because they don't know from the propaganda in our media, the Arab countries have said since 2002 in what's called the Arab Peace Initiative that if there's a state of Palestine alongside the state of Israel, there can be normal relations with Israel for the Arab states in the region as well. So come on, if you cut through all of the muck and the murk and these terrible statements about burning Lebanon and all the rest, we have a choice that's very clear in front of us. This Greater Israel Project has been a disaster, and America bought into it until maybe a couple of days ago. Donald Trump should explain it to the American people, that he's not buying into it. It's over. He's making peace with Iran, and he's aiming for peace in the region through the two-state solution, which is ostensibly the policy of the United States dating back decades, but not the policy in reality.
Can the Iranians trust Trump? He has dispatched a naive and inexperienced vice president to lead the negotiations, backed up by his two Zionist real estate agents. And remember, on two occasions when the Iranians thought they were going to negotiations, last June and last February, the United States bombed.
Well, no, they can't trust Trump, but we can have peace without trust right now. In other words, there can be a ceasefire. Iran will stand ready in case the United States and Israel attack again to do what they can do, which is to retaliate effectively. And on that basis, there can be peace. The truth is that a ceasefire and even a broader agreement is strongly in America's interest, strongly. The only interest that is violated by such an agreement is the Greater Israel Project. I happen to believe that Israel would be the great beneficiary of this peace because it will survive, not as Greater Israel, just as Israel. And that will be very good. And it will be very good that there's a state of Palestine. All of that can happen. It doesn't depend on trust. It does depend on the United States following through. But if the United States doesn't follow through, I'd be surprised, frankly, if Iran lets its guard drop. They don't trust anything from the United States. Why should they? But they don't have to trust the U.S., at least have a ceasefire, open the Strait of Hormuz. Then it is up to the United States. Are they going to continue to back this reckless project of Israel, of Greater Israel?
Well, I'm going to play a clip from former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. It's very bombastic. I think you'll agree with much of it. Maybe not the last two words, but much of what he says. Some of it's humorous because of his technique. Chris, cut number 2.
He tells us this is about regime change, unconditional surrender, eliminate the nuclear threat, and eliminate their missile capability. That's what he tells us. He then does 5 weeks of war, less than what the Pentagon wanted him to do, and then he stops. And he stops and fills the air with a whole bunch of empty threats about when he's going to restart. Then he gets to the point where the Iranians have him in a corner because of the economic calamity that's caused by something that apparently his geniuses in his national security team didn't anticipate, that they would close the Strait of Hormuz. Mm-hmm. How they didn't anticipate that, John, I don't know. So now he has to make a deal because he feels the economy in the United States crumbling beneath him. And what's he do? He gives them the option of opening or closing the Strait of Hormuz based upon their interpretation of whether
they have to work it out with Oman.
Right. Us and Israel are complying. Us and Israel, not a party to the agreement. He gives them a $300 billion bribe offer. He unfreezes all of their assets. He gives them their oil profits back, which is $35 to $50 billion a year. On top of it, he doesn't prevent them from charging service fees to go through the strait, which JP Morgan says could be $60 to $90 billion a year. And now to end where you started, he hands over the negotiations to a naive and inexperienced vice president and 2 other guys who would be better buying you an office building in Alexandria than negotiating this. And let me say this, he's gone from America first to Iran first.
No, okay. Let's say a couple of things. The president is right to end this war and stop this. This was an Israeli inspired debacle, and Trump is trying to end it. I don't criticize Trump for trying to end it. In fact, I praise him for trying to end it. Of course, this was a useless war. I don't praise him for having started it. I think the whole thing was a delusion of 2 people, Netanyahu and Trump. But let's be intelligent about this, please, which is this war that never should have started should not go on just because it did start. The war should be ended now. And Trump is trying to end the war, and I support him for that. And I support Vance for that because I think Vance understands that that his base doesn't want the war, and they're right. And his future depends on his political future depends on us not having a global economic calamity. So every week I come on and I have criticized Trump for getting us into this mess and many others, but I don't want to criticize Trump for getting us out of this mess. I want to say he's right to do it, and he has to face down 30 years of a Zionist lobby, which has been holding America to follow this absolutely disastrous Netanyahu, Smotrich, Ben-Gvir policy. And if Trump is trying to break that right now, I support Trump for doing that.
You're such a good man, Professor Sachs, because you've been such a harsh critic of the president. But when he's right, you have the personal courage and intellectual honesty to acknowledge it. I don't know where this is going to go. When I read the English translation of that Hebrew attack on him, I didn't know that was Mrs. Adelson's newspaper. It was vicious.
Yes. this is we're really at the core of the politics right now because the U.S. has been in the hands of Israeli extremism for decades. I'm not against Israel. I'm against Greater Israel Project. I'm not against Israel. I'm for peace, and I'm for a state of Palestine, and I am for Israel living within its own borders and stopping making all these wars across the region. I happen to think that's the best way for Israel to survive also, which I would like to see because there are 8 million people there. I'd like them to survive. And I'd like the Palestinian people to survive. There are also 8 million people there. So we need to free ourselves from this hold that Miriam Adelson and her late husband and a number of others and a lot of the Christian Zionists and a lot of others have had their grip on American politics. And so we're going to see a lot of reflexes right now attacking Trump for trying to do something different from what Israel is demanding. But he's right to do so in this case. So we should keep clear that we want this war to end.